Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Gray. I'm a member of past member of the Aura framework team, which Lightning is built with, right? So I've been involved with the framework for quite a while now. I haven't always been on the team, but I've worked with them for, as you'll see, quite a while. I won't spoil some of the dates here. And I'm here to talk to you about the history of the Lightning framework, which I think is a super exciting topic. And I gave a talk yesterday, and I'm much more excited about this because I think this is just so much more interesting than any inspector-related stuff. I know you guys could deserve a better speaker for this. I'm not as eloquent as I wish I was, but I'll do my best with this subject. And so let's really start all the way back to the beginning. The Lightning framework, the motivations, exactly everything that really you're going to want to understand on why we are where we are. And I'm hoping what you're going to get out of this is no way how to write Lightning, a framework like that, or anything like what we're doing now. Just really a perspective of why we are where we're at, and why this thing has some intricacies that might not have otherwise come up if we were in a different situation other than the Salesforce ecosystem. So we really should start in Classic, 2008, which seems not that long ago, but is 8 years ago, right? And so we're looking at this thing, and we're wondering, what's the next version of Salesforce look like? Obviously a picture of 2016, but Classic still lives. And so we're trying to figure out, where do we go with this, right? We have things like the page layout editor already in setup at that point, and so we have these interactive user experiences that don't go page to page. They're very fast. You drag things, you click, it pops right up. Same thing with Facebook, Gmail, very interactive. This is really, you can tell, the future of where the internet's going at this point. And so it's naturally the sensible way to go, right? This is where Salesforce needs to go next. Well, that's how Meridian was born. Meridian is the project that we came up with that said, this is the next version of Salesforce. We're going to do these interactive UIs. Here on the left, I have a very old screenshot I dug up for, I think it was Service Desk. And here on the right, we have what kind of the standard entity page would look like. You can see there's some hovers and pop-ups. It looks actually a lot like the page layout editor if you've used that thing before. So we have these new UIs. We have all these guys designing all these beautiful experiences. We need a framework. At this point, Classic's built on basic Java and JavaScript. You just integrate those two, and that's what we do. We want the next version of VisualForce, CDK2. This is what we're going to build Meridian with. And why VisualForce? Well, that's what you guys use. If we're going to write you a related list component and have my friend here use that in the page, you guys should be able to use the exact same thing. Obviously, these principles are going to carry forward. That's what Lightning is. But Lumen, this is where Lumen comes from, and this is the birth of the framework right here in 2008. So we're working forward. We're using this CDK2, and we're trying to build Meridian, right? Well, as you can tell, we have some complications, in particular the Lumen data service. The thing that you get data from the server, change it, and put it back to the server almost didn't exist. Like, how can we even do any of these designs that I just showed you previously without a Lumen data service? So it didn't really work out. As you guys probably know, you never really experienced Meridian. Never got any of those designs. So what did we do? We basically just put everything on back burner. We just said, OK, the designs, Meridian, all that stuff needs to wait. We're going to put that off to the side. The Lumen team is going to get the opportunity to go way off in the distance and work on CDK2, Lumen, whatever you want to call it. And so they got the opportunity at this point to build the framework for the next generation of Salesforce. Is that a good idea? Anyway, we have to come back to Classic. We still need the next generation of Salesforce, right? This is where Aloha comes from. You know, we had all these ambitions on Meridian, but we decided to wait on that. So we just wanted to give you a fresher, spacier, bluer feeling. And the guys on this are actually around here that did a lot of this work. And we only had 1 or 2 guys on this project to restyle all of Salesforce, and they could not go through, eliminate all the styling, and just style it anew. Wasn't going to happen. So what we did is we took Classic, and we overlaid Aloha on top of it with just new colors, new spacings, et cetera, and that's what Aloha looks like. And all I did here is I went into Aloha 16, deleted the Aloha style sheet, and we still have Classic. You guys are still basically running Classic underneath the covers, because that's all it is. It's just restyled. We've done some touch-ups here and there, but a lot of the bones are the same across Salesforce. So let's go back to Lumen. The Aloha guys are off doing their work. Lumen's coming back, right? And they're like, OK, we got this framework. What do we need it to do? We got CDK, and we have this long design doc of what it should do. But they took a look at Aloha and Classic and said, what are the problems? Because they got two sets of customers. They got you guys, and then they got some Salesforce guys, which are internal customers going to use the same product almost the same way. So we took a look at Aloha, did some general perf ideas and productivity issues. A lot of the stuff is general perf 101. We're making tons of XHRs, getting images up the wazoo. We should be grouping all that. The framework should take care of that. We don't want developers to have to worry about it. And the performance of Aloha was slightly climbing up, slightly getting worse. And so they took all these, went back to their camp, and worked on that. And February 11, 2010 is when we finally get the Lumen that you kind of know today as Aura, right? And this is when we check in all the component files, the event services, all these services, because before this, we almost had a VisualForce magical system that kind of lived on the server, kind of lived on the client, and we wanted to do some magic for you, but it didn't really work. And this is where you basically have Lumen. So February 11, 2010, 6 years. Awesome framework. So they take this framework, and now they've checked in their component classes, and they're iterating on it. And this is some of the strategies that they really took to tackle all those issues. If you're wondering why anything is the way it is, I can almost guarantee you that it's usually a response to a problem in Aloha. Things like too many XHR requests, well, we're grouping all the actions and sending them off. Security, well, we used to have plugin code that ran right on the same page. Now we have locker service, right? One of the internal ones for us is that if I wrote a JavaScript and put it on the page and then I left a team, you almost don't even know who owned that thing. And so components really helped with that going forward. And then you have like 7, 8 different files, right? This is straight from the dev console. Why do we have all these files? Well, one of the reasons is that you can't do a framework in 2010 without it being MVC. It's incomprehensible at this point. And the others is that we really wanted tight APIs. The JavaScript file with all these classes, you don't know what its methods are, you don't know what its attributes are, et cetera, et cetera. The markup file is crucial for this to allow the platform integrations that we have with Lightning. So you see we have a controller. We have a markup file, kinda, with the application component, right? There is no model here. How do you have an MVC framework without a model? Well, the problem isn't that we don't have models. The problem is that the models are just this insane concept in Aura. They populate themselves, as one framework developer said. And that's just not cool. They were causing a lot of problems internally because we were using them quite extensively. And really the biggest problem with models for us internally turned out to be that offline doesn't work with them. They come down with your component. What if you're offline? Well, you don't have a component. The solution to that was storable actions. So basically, models went the way of the dodo. They're kind of still around, but we deprecated them. And so if you kind of look under the covers of One.app, you can find them. They're off in their little cave. They're still working on Lumen. They're still iterating. And every once in a while, a madman will walk into their camp and say, we've spent 3-4 years on this thing. And the new framework of the day, whatever it happens to be, is much better than whatever you guys are doing, and we should shut you down and go with them. Well, as you can imagine, these battles are kind of intense, right? We've spent 3 years basically at this point writing this thing. When people love Backbone, they know Backbone. We hired a bunch of Backbone guys, and we just use Backbone. This is continually a battle. Even now, we kind of have guys coming into our camp on the Aura side saying, React is the thing. We should be using React. Long story. There is no ending to this. It just constantly goes on and on and on. But essentially, the use case for Lumen and the abilities that it gives us with Locker service and APIs, et cetera, allow us to fight them off for now. So everything's going really great except for the occasional madman coming into the camp. And they think it's time to figure out what this thing can do. Let's build an app. Let's build a proof of concept app. And so they go off, and thankfully, they're unguarded, they're unaccosted at this point. They start building a mobile web application, right? And this is how Touch is born. And the hard thing for them is that they did really well with this. They went off and they did a great little proof of concept app. It was beautiful. It was unlike anything Salesforce had seen before, because Salesforce has looked like classic, and they were able to do something whatever they want on this mobile application, and it was fantastic. It wouldn't perform right, but it was great. And so their manager shows it to another manager, who shows it to another manager, and this is when Mark sees it. And he's like, this is what I've been wanting, people. Come on. This is fantastic. I'm so happy we've invested in this framework. It's amazing. And this is how Touch becomes the next big thing for Dreamforce, right? And as you can imagine, this is the best news this framework can hear, that their proof of concept application, which has illuminated a lot of different issues, is now GA ready for Dreamforce. So not the best thing for them. But, well, I'm going to stop for a second. There were two things I wanted to mention with the framework at this point. Two things that really just a lot of us were not happy with. This one in particular is value wrappers. So we had this concept that we wanted to be able to set something, like items, and then pass it around, or set it and then commit it or uncommit it. And so you'd have like transactional properties, and then you'd want to know when something changed in general. And that led to this format here. Well, you got two set values. Do they do the same thing? You got two get. You got a get. What is get different than get value? People got confused with this all the time. Not to mention it was unperformant worth hell, because if you have if items is just a Boolean, well, now you have a function, an object wrapping a Boolean, so you've got like 5 function pointers for one. It was insane. The performance of this was untenable. The other one being long trees are just part of Lightning. You're building a component tree, and they get like this. This is existing component tree from 1.app today, because I don't have one from that long ago. Well, for Lumen, if you change this guy up here on the very top, the 1.1.app, and you just change some Boolean on it, I don't allow framing to true, it's going to re-render this entire tree for you. Every component's going to go through the render cycle. As you can imagine, that is not performant. That is obscenely bad. And so we ended up having to take that out too, because we could not have shipped anything with that concept in there. And so does Lumen get to work on those? No. They got to work on Touch, right? These components are from SLDS, but essentially they've got to go and write these same kinds of components for Touch. And none of this is easy, especially in this framework, which things building were not very easy. You'd use get value when you meant to use get, and everything would blow up. And even something as simple as the account name input has undos and errors, and heck, they even said, oh, we need to track errors. So they added error tracking to the framework, not the component, but the framework. And so the framework has concepts of errors on every attribute. More bloat, right? As you guys know, we actually did ship Touch. People liked it. It was decent. It was pretty good for the Lumen team to really get get this framework in an order that can ship. And now they get to go off and fix all those issues I just talked about, right? Now it's time for Salesforce 1, actually. Now we have to go and actually do touch in kind of the way it should have been done, and we should do it for all the devices. It's time for, this is actually Meridian happening again, right? This is what we wanted at the beginning in Meridian, and happy story, happy ending, it did actually happen. But the issues, we get to go back to them, and this is where Halo appears. The Halo team is a small little group of heroes that says, I'm going to go tackle those things. The rest of you guys can go off and ship Salesforce 1. I am going to fix these issues or die trying. Okay, they go off. The rest of the team, they go off to ship Salesforce 1, and one of the things they have to do is get it ready for customers. Because what the original intent was that we write the components, you can use them, you write the components right on the platform the same exact way that we do. And that means that Lumen is not acceptable as a title. You haven't really used Lumen, right? It doesn't exist anymore, and it was not really an acceptable title. And so we threw around a little poll on Chatter. Some people suggested some things, and we decided to use Plume. And as you know, the Plume framework doesn't exist. That's rather stupid. Gordon, one of our developers, had to lock thousands of files. It took several days of stopping development to rename all of this Lumen to Plume. As you know, we have Oracle and iteration, Oracle and if. We have the name of the framework right in the code. It's just like all kinds of problems to get to here. And so he does it again. He renames 1,500 files, locks everything, and this is where we get Aura. And so Halo guys are off trying to tackle problems. This is when Aura's born. So Aura is obviously what we ended up with, which was awesome because I think he would have hurt himself if he had to do it again. Awesome. They're off progressing on Salesforce 1, right? They're doing their best. There's like, I want to say about 24 teams, I think, writing components for Salesforce 1 with that framework. Back to Halo, it failed. It actually failed 3 times. There was an original guy, and then he just kept reforming and do it again and do it again. We're gonna do this because those are such crucial issues that need to be solved. But like, failing is not something that usually happens on these kinds of projects. You just kind of get some chunks and you work on it, but every time you push one Lego, the whole thing would fall over. Actual quote from one of the developers on that third Lumen team, he took a long vacation after this, is that he was completely broken. This is like one of our star developers that we give the hardest problems to, and I didn't want to name him, but it was obscenely hard of a problem. And so what do? Right? We do number 4. These are the jokers we decided to do number 4. I just saw one of them right over there, but I was one of them. This guy on the right was, he's one of the architects now on the framework. He was on one of the original versions of Halo, and so thankfully he had some concept of what we were dealing with. But the rest of us, yeah, we walked right into some nasty stuff. And so we go off, and we don't just like separate from the framework. We are completely isolated. No emails, no phone calls. It was completely unacceptable to come over and talk to any of us. You would get yelled at by some of the highest level of people. And so in this case, we had 3 months before Salesforce 1 was really going to ship to Dreamforce that we had the chance to go in and do the final Halo that had to happen for the Dreamforce release. While everyone was still writing the features for Dreamforce to make sure that everything was shipping and everything was kosher, and we couldn't break them, of course, but in our own branch, we were pretty hostile for Aura. We had, for a lot of the development of this thing, over a quarter of our tests were failing, and we would try to launch one.app and the whole thing would fall over and break. This is kind of chaos, and the hard part is that we had 3 months, but 1 month in, it looked like this. 2 months in, it looked like this. We've got really 2 more weeks before our drop dead date to really get this in, and everything still looked like this. We weren't telling anybody, though. We couldn't say, I don't know, man, this ain't going to happen, because this had to happen, and there wasn't going to be a Halo 5, and there was Dreamforce was like 2 weeks away. In fact, we were coding in the back. Me and the other guys were sitting around in the back during Dreamforce because we were going to launch this thing 2 weeks after Dreamforce, and we had to check in 1 week so that everyone had a chance to test their features, because if we check in and everyone like chatter's broken and content and all these other accounts, then obviously it's even worse. Then you're going to get to the end of release, you can't even ship a product, and then everything we promised you is broken, which would not lead to happy developers and happy people. So I know it sounds kind of depressing, but it was actually a lot of fun. It was really great. And we had a 2-week deadline. We were like, if we get in before 2 weeks, we're going to give people the chance to test their stuff. Well, it didn't really happen that way. I think we were a week past when we were supposed to check in. And we're still kind of like, we had 20-ish tests broken. We have no idea why they're broken. It takes forever to investigate why these issues. But we're a week past, and we just decided, screw it, we'll check in. It's going to happen. So we checked in. And we had, I don't know, like 35, 45 people in a room just furiously manual testing this thing. We were debugging on the fly. The next 2 weeks were pretty tough because we hit feature freeze. And then we got these executives saying, hey, my teams can't finish their stuff because they're broken by Halo. And then we got the Halo guys saying, yeah, but if we don't ship Halo, you're not going to probably have a feature. So we check in, and it actually ended up being OK. There's actually a few issues that still exist today, but holy cow, the framework is fast. We got value wrappers out. We completely rewrote the rendering service. Errors don't exist anymore. The thing is case sensitive. All these things that Halo did actually kind of worked out for the best. And we were able to guard enough. So the APIs that we exposed to you guys are now in a good enough shape where we can now, underneath the covers, kind of rip out some pieces and shove them back in, which we're constantly doing to try to speed this thing up even further. I'm actually doing great on time, but we got 2 years actually since then. Halo here was 2014. We shipped Salesforce 1. And so what have we actually done since then? Nothing as substantial as shipping the framework, because obviously between 2000 and 2014, there was a lot of maturity, a lot of getting it ready. But we've done a lot of performance improvements. We've gotten it on the platform. We've allowed the other teams to really integrate with it, like App Builder and SLDS. Locker service is obviously going to be crucial for us to box it around. I didn't want to say any of the amazing things we're about to release, even though Diego's done some great stuff, because I didn't want a safe harbor slide, but dev tools, offline, et cetera, et cetera. There's constant small improvements. But the last 2 years of history is not nearly exciting to me as, oh, look at this. We saved Lumen's life at this last moment, and we saved Aura for Salesforce 1 at this last moment. So I hope that you kind of have a perspective of where this framework's come from, all the battles it's had to go through. There's still madmen wandering into the camp saying this next framework is the next big thing. And, maybe one day you'll get lightning on React. Thank you.